Hey, high achiever. I know you care deeply about goals, performance, and accomplishments, but you might feel stuck sometimes. And that's where I come in. My name is Charlene Jefferson, and I am a certified high performance coach, here to guide you as you create intentional habits and routines that will get you to the next level. Whether you want to grow in your career, business, relationships, health, or hobbies, I'll help you propel your goals forward through the habit of living. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Habit of Living podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today because I have a special guest, someone who I know personally and who has a special place in my heart and my business. And I can't wait to introduce you today. So if you see this beautiful lady, then this is Dr. Tracy Timberlake. And
Hi, everyone.
She's my business coach, but I'll tell you a little bit more about her and you'll learn more about her as we go along in this episode, as well as what she can help you do as today as well in your business or in your life. So why don't we get started? So Dr. Tracy is an award-winning business coach, digital strategist. I think is what Google kind of says she is, but she's super personable, super genuine. She has been a joy to work with in my own business. And I can't wait again for you guys to get to know her up here so she can talk money and money mindset. So let's go ahead and get into the episode today. So I'll start with a couple questions, Dr. Tracy, and we'll just kind of talk and we'll let it go with the flow and create the flow of the conversation
Okay.
here today. Awesome. So tell me, Dr. Tracy, a little bit about, money mindset. Tell me a little bit about that.
Gosh, I think that especially if you're an entrepreneur or you are wanting to build a business, but even if you're wanting to create any sort of wealth legacy, right? So it's not just for entrepreneurs, it's really just for life. One of the biggest things I encounter in this work is that people really just don't understand how money works. And it's because we have a lot of layers of trauma within our own money story that really limits us. And it puts us in a position of like bottlenecking our own capabilities. And I meet so many people who are extremely successful at what they do, who are incredibly intelligent like yourself, who have a ton of experience doing what it is they do, but they're struggling with money because they're not understanding how to translate some of what they do into something beyond where they are currently. And then when they start to make that transition, well, now they're catching themselves in spaces of limiting beliefs because they don't know how to overcome their identity around their current or past money story. So working through the money mindset piece, I mean, giving somebody a strategy is one thing, which I do. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day. I said, I can give anybody the strategy. The problem is the execution because we limit ourselves based on our own beliefs. And money is just one of those things.
Awesome. I mean, I can't agree with you more. I mean, just working with Dr. Tracy, it made me think about my own money story. I had never thought about my own money story and how it could be limiting my own abilities to, execute on my business as well as grow and scale my business. So money mindset certainly is key, especially, in life, but also in, definitely in entrepreneurship. So you mentioned earlier about, just that money mindset and our money story. How does one start uncovering what their money story is?
So one of the first things that I always tell people is to actually ask yourself, what was your first memory around money? Because usually we think of our money story in terms of the present day, but the truth is that our present day, who we are today, how we handle money, how we deal with money, what we think about money, that relationship starts way, way earlier. Usually, when we're like 2, 3 years old, and it's what we've learned from our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our teachers. So the beginning of learning your own money story is walking through your money journey. What is your first money memory? Was it your parents arguing at the dinner table because there wasn't enough money to pay the bills that month? Was it, you were very well off, but then somebody in your family lost all of their money and then you ended up having to move in from a house to an apartment, right? All of those narratives, we adopt them and then we create our own reality around money, our own belief system around money based off of things that we learned really early on. So starting the journey of knowing your money story. Why do I think this way? Why do I think you have to work really hard to make money, right? That comes from a past experience or several past experiences. why do I think that wealthy people are selfish? Right. Well, that comes from a past money story. So really taking a look at what happened in the past is really the best way to begin your own journey with your money story.
I love that explanation of just how to start, creating your own money story and understanding where or why, you are where you are right now as it relates to, your money and getting out there with your business or just in life, taking in, on investments and just increasing your own, financial well-being. One of the things I just thought about, researching, a little bit about money story, you talked about, talking to your parents or just, just regular childlike, situations with your parents at the dinner table, right? And then you said, maybe an argument or something where they're arguing about money. And I was talking to a friend the other day and we were talking about, things being caught versus taught when we were growing up. And so you talked about that, hit that on the head, where we're kids were not necessarily been taught about the money, situation behind the scenes, but we're just kind of seeing, that argument at the table or those little pieces of it, but never, having that full story and then left to, kind of create, like you said, our own reality around what that is.
Right, exactly. And most people don't realize how much those little moments growing up, like maybe you asked your mom for a toy at the grocery store and she said, "Oh no, we can't afford that." And
Mhm.
children will internalize that, children including us, like us when we were children, we
Yeah.
internalize a lot of those memories, and who knows what narrative you created based off of just one small instant that your parents, it's not their fault. I mean, I don't
Right.
think anybody meant to teach you these things, but we're internalizing, we're always processing, and between the ages of 0 and 7, we're just absorbing the world around us, trying to make sense out of what's happening. And a lot of that has to do with money, how we're supposed to operate with money, how money is supposed to operate with us. And so, really beginning your journey there helps inform why you do the things that you do as an adult.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, well, that's money and investing, and just kind of how we kind of start our story, right? How we were growing up, how we experienced our parents, and what they talked about and discussed as it relates to money. How once I've asked myself my own money story, right? Maybe I've written it down and I've uncovered, where I am with my money story. Then what do I do? Like, what do I do with that story?
Right. Well, I think a lot of people, they immediately go into judgment. Like they immediately go into, I judge myself like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe oh, I'm so terrible. Man, I'm so stupid. Why did I think these things?" Right. And so I tell people like, no, we're not judging our money story. We're simply looking at it from a neutral place and saying, okay, this is how I was taught. This is how I grew up. And then from there, you get to decide, right? So now you're looking at your money story and you get to decide, does this money story serve me in where I desire to go? Like, do the beliefs that I adopted from learning about money this way, are those beliefs going to carry me into the place that I want to be, into my dream life? Usually the answer is no. And so from there, we begin to say, okay, which of these money beliefs are actually true? Like, for example, let's take I have to work really hard to make money. That's a common one, especially for high achieving people, especially in the minority community, because I think we come from a background where that's what we were taught. We're taught you have to work really hard so that you can, find success, so that you can make money. And I tell people all the time, I said, that's not actually true. Because if you look at the people who make the most money in the world, they work the least
Yeah.
because they have people working for them, right? And I tell people the more money I make, the less I actually work. So I know for a fact that that is not a true statement. So you have to go through all of the beliefs that are coming up for you, the things that you were taught, maybe money doesn't grow on trees, something like all of those little things that we heard growing up. And you have to ask yourself, are these statements true? And then if they are not true, what do I want to believe instead? And then begin to make a list of like, I actually want to believe that money comes easy to me. I actually want to believe that opportunity is available to me at all times to make large quantities of money. I want to believe that, I am destined to be a millionaire or a billionaire in some cases. And then you have to adopt new belief systems to replace the old ones.
Love that. Love that. So, did you guys hear that? The first thing you do after you create your story, you write it down and uncover it, is to not judge ourselves. Don't judge yourself. Listen, we judge ourselves so much already. Let's not, judge ourselves once we're trying to figure out, what our story is. And then to make a different choice, to make a different decision around our money story. Do we believe in those, thoughts that we had and were taught as we're growing up. And if not, let's decide to do the positive. Let's decide to do the affirmative, replacing those negative beliefs with the positive money beliefs we have. So thank you so much, Dr. Tracy, for explaining that next step to us. Now, growing up, I grew up in the church, and I believe you did too. And you're in the church now. One of the things we heard just growing up, just threw it out there, right? Money's the root of all evil. I know you've heard it probably 1,100,000,000 times, right? Tell me, what's behind that?
Right. So the verse is not actually money is the root of evil. It's the love of money is the root of evil. And I think that people are starting to understand that it's the love of money. And quite frankly, it has nothing to do with money at all. This is what I tell people. That verse actually has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with your heart and where you are putting your heart and the things that you value, because ultimately as believers, like, we want to value God above everything else, right? There are values, a value system around, being a believer, being a Christian person, that takes precedent over just making a whole bunch of money, right? So that verse has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with, hey, what are you actually trusting in? Like, where is your source? Who are you believing in? Where are you putting your faith? Because a lot of the times when people are putting their security in their wealth and their riches, then that takes them away from God. And that's obviously not what God wants. So the conversation really has less to do with money. It has everything to do with, where are you putting your trust? Who are you surrendering to? How are you showing up, for your life? And who are you believing to sustain you? That's really what the conversation is about.
Well, thank you so much for clearing that up, Dr. Tracy. Guys, it's not that money is the root of all evil. The love of money is what the word was talking about. And it's not even referring to money. It's talking about your heart posture. So what is your heart's desire? Is it focused so on money, etc.? So thanks for clearing that up, Dr. Tracy. So, you've given us a lot of, beginning steps, right? To kind of develop our money story, and then uncover and not to judge ourselves, and then find the beliefs that we want to believe about our money, right? And then once we've done that, make sure we, develop that positive mindset about our money, right? And those affirmations. So tell us a little bit, about maybe how you started this, right? And then if you experienced any challenges along the way, because, we as people, we you can tell us to do something, but you mentioned at the beginning, it's that execution part, because we're like, it can't be that easy. If it was that easy, I would have already done it. So, what challenges have you experienced in your own money story? And then, just kind of developing that new belief that you have for your own self.
Yeah, so let me first talk about how I kind of came into this work and what I find with a lot of people that I work with. So I would say that once I started to learn about money, and I don't really remember the first time, I think it was just kind of like a season where I was introduced to just these new concepts around it, right? That, everybody, money is available for everyone. Wealth is available for everyone. That abundance, and I'm not just talking about monetary abundance, I'm talking about all kinds of abundance, right? Abundance is your birthright, right? So when I first started hearing those things, it really did clash with some of the things that I was taught as well, like especially from the pulpit, right? Like you're not taught that in a lot of different spaces. And so it took me some time to reconcile. I'd have to read and I'd have to study and I'd have to look at root words and what does it really mean? And let me dive deeper, right, into studying and understanding what these universal principles around money, or even things like the law of attraction, which a lot of people use to attract wealth. But what does that actually mean? And then what is the foundation of that? What is the biblical foundation of that? Because my faith is very important to me. And I certainly didn't want to find myself in a place where the beliefs that I had were clashing with things that, were other people were talking about. But there was a part of me, and this is what a lot of people encounter, is that when it's explained to you a certain way, or when you understand it a certain way, when you go back and you find the foundations of this, like rooted in ancient texts, like the Bible, for example, when you do that, you'll realize that a lot of this new age stuff is not actually new age. It is old age Bible. This is what I say. It's not new age. It is old age Bible. It has been there all along. And a lot of people encounter these truths, and I present them from a biblical foundation. And when I present them that way, and I present the truths to them, a lot of them resonate with it because it is something that they actually did believe on the inside. It was just never explained in a way that made sense and reconciled with their own personal beliefs and their own faith system. And I find that that is the journey that a lot of people experience. It's like, oh, like no one has ever explained it to me that way. But now that you say it, that makes a lot of sense. And that is what I believe. So then they move into the space of belief very quickly because we find the truth with a capital T. The challenge, here's the challenge. And that can be part of the challenge is reconciling those two beliefs. The challenge is uncovering and dealing with the decades worth of money trauma that people have experienced in their past, and then them trusting the process that is, that's a part of their story, but it's not the whole story. So it's like trying to get them from here to there. The gap is wide because it's like they see it, they know what they wanted. There it is right there. I want to believe those things, but I've been taught so many other things, right? And so it's dealing with the past trauma, because it's like with one thing you've figured it out, right? You've cleared one thing, something else comes up and you're like, dang it, I didn't even know that was a problem for me, but here I am experience. So it's just the constant working of it can sometimes be frustrating because you don't know what you don't know until it comes up for you to be cleared.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine, working through, any trauma, right? Can
Right.
be one, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't always feel good, right, to deal with the trauma. But, at the end of it, is that you reach a belief that actually serves you and your life. So I think, you're exactly right. That's the challenge in it, guys. And most things, worth having obviously is worth working for. We've heard that before in our lives. And so I think this is certainly something that we all should do, is really address our money mindset and uncover our own money story so that we can release the abundance of not just money, but of everything into our lives. Because like Dr. Tracy said, abundance is out there for us, and how do you call it into your life? So that leads me into my next question. Tell us maybe some of your favorite affirmations where you have felt like, oh my God, when I was starting out early on, these are some really good affirmations that I started with that made me feel, more connected to my new belief system.
Mhm.
And I just, begin to see, the benefits of developing that belief system.
Yeah. So the one of my favorite affirmations is actually one that was originally a challenge for me to say because it did bump up against some of the things that I was taught around money and around success and around wealth. And that was that I am worthy of my desires.
Hmm.
Saying that because you're using things in there that I think traditionally, especially in the faith-based communities or in certain Christian spaces, there are two words in there that are can be very triggering. Number one, worthy. Like
Mhm.
we don't often see ourselves as worthy of anything. We're not allowed to. We're just out here, sinful people, ruining everything. And God saves us, and all of that is true. But we have to believe that God actually did save us, right? So the I am worthy piece is very hard for people to get around, especially in faith-based communities. And the second one is desires,
Hmm.
because we're not taught that we're allowed to have desires. We are supposed to be content. And we don't understand the value of desire and how God really speaks to us in desire and through desire. And desires are really what makes the world go round. Like having the desire to do something is what pushes the needle of mankind forward. Somebody at some point desired to build a computer, and then they did. And now we get a chance to have a conversation over it through something called the internet. And we get to talk to people all over the world. I'm sure that you have podcast listeners who are not your next door neighbors, right? I'm sure that they're in different states. So
Right.
those two words inside of that affirmation, it took me a while to work through it. I am worthy of all that I desire. I am worthy of all of my desires. I had to work through both of those separately. What does worthiness mean? What does it mean to me? And I
Mm.
had to sit with that and really reconcile my own personal beliefs with God around my worthiness. And then I had to sit with the fact that God actually does give me the desires of my heart. He doesn't like give me what I desire. He gives the actual desire to me. And what does that look like for me to live out? So that's one of my favorite affirmations.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you're so on point with, those two words. I mean, worthy and desires. Absolutely. I mean, how many out there hear that word worthy and you almost just like kind of sink because they're like, oh, you kind of shy away from that word. And you're right, Dr. Tracy. Even when you said it, I was like, worthy. Oh.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how do we get better, guys, at, really adopting and believing that we are worthy and that, the desires can be given to us, from the right source. So absolutely, Dr. Tracy, thank you for sharing your favorite affirmation. I'm sure many people, my podcast listeners, will definitely adopt that as well as they start their money
I hope
mindset
so.
journey. So I titled this, kind of episode. I titled it "Money Mindset Habits with Residuals."
Mm.
I was just thinking about, just how money is one thing, one part of the residuals, right? When you develop a healthy money mindset, but there's so much more and many more benefits, right, in developing a good mindset. Period. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know money, obviously, money mindset is your thing, but what other residuals can you develop just by having a good mindset or
Right.
habit of mindset?
Yeah, so I love it. I love that question because money is often one of the hardest things for people to really get their mind around, like for them to really have a healthy and positive relationship with is money. And so if you work on money mindset, for example, you will see that trickle down into other areas of your life. So let's take a look at the concept of I am worthy of all my desires. So that affirmation was obviously centered around money because at the time when I adopted that affirmation, and I still say that affirmation, but when I first used that affirmation, it was because I was in the process of building my business, building my brand, right? And that was a desire that I had. And I had to believe that I was worthy of it. Now, I've experienced wonderful expansion in my business, but the I am worthy of all my desires is beyond just my business, right? That means that I am worthy of, if I desire to have healthy relationships, I am worthy of that too. If I desire to go on a vacation, I'm worthy of that. If I desire to buy a new car, buy a new computer, if I desire to watch Netflix, like whatever I desire to do, like that belief system trickles into every single area of my life. And so what I always say is that expansion is never an isolated incident. So if you're expanding in one area, let's say money, usually you will see that expansion. And sometimes that expansion is uncomfortable, right? Because you're like, well, a lot of clients will be like, well, I came to you because I wanted to learn about money, but now here I am on your couch talking about my marriage. And I'm like, yes, well, congratulations. You have graduated into expanding into other areas of your life because it's not just about money. Like, yes, money is something we talk about, but we are whole people. We are dynamic people with many different iterances and identities and communities and experiences. And so you want to experience expansion in all of it, right? Not just money, because it's no fun to make a lot of money, but have no friends. Like it's
Right.
right. So you want to make money, but you also want to have a lot of friends or have good relationships or
Yeah.
have, a good place to stay, a good environment. So, in the process of you learning how to think differently, and it's not even so much about thinking positively, it's really
Mhm.
about thinking differently because
Yeah.
we have to shift our mind into looking at things different. Like, let's take relationships, for example. Some people are like, oh, there's no good men out there, right? Like, oh, there's no good men out there. That's not actually true. So, but if you thought differently around it, like, could there actually be just one? Because you only need one. Like, how many good men do you need? You only need one. Like, so could you possibly think differently? And then when you start to experience successes in one area, you're like, oh, well, maybe I can take that same principle and look differently about this over here, or look differently about that over there. So it's just a habit. To your point, it's a
Yeah.
habit. It's learning the habit of growing and expanding in possibility and not always seeing limitations.
Absolutely love that explanation. So, guys, one, there are plenty of good men out there. So let's stop talking about there's not any, right? There you go. Like you got to put it out there in the atmosphere. If you keep saying there's no, good men out there, then that's what you're gonna keep meeting. I mean,
Right.
we talk about, in our class with you, Dr. Tracy, and platform, you talk a lot about energy and how we are energy and how we attract things, right? And so I think that is a good segue, right? If we're saying things out in the atmosphere, what's coming back to us? What energy are we showing up with, and what energy is are we calling back to us? Can you talk a little bit more about the energy we give off versus the energy, and how to just attract that
Yes.
good energy back in?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite topics because this is going to marry the spiritual and the science. So you're going to have to stick with me as I explain this, and I'm going to try to do it very quickly because normally this is a long conversation. When God created the heavens and the earth, like if we look at it from a biblical principle of Genesis chapter 1, and God spoke the earth into existence, and God said, "Let there be." The concept of "let there be," when you speak, that is a vibrational sound. And so I always say, like, the echo of God's vibrational sound has been carrying us since the beginning of time, since he spoke the world in existence, his vibration, the echo of God's eternal divine self has been a part of everything that we see. So if we know that vibration created the world, right? And we know that this world, and it talks about this in Hebrews, is really a reflection or a mirror of what exists in the heavenly realms. But we have to recognize that, vibration is in fact in everything. That means that everything vibrates. Now, that is going back to the book of Genesis and understanding the principle of how God spoke, but it's also taking a look at science. And if you look at anything under a microscope, it is in fact vibrating. There's a vibrational signature to every single thing. As a matter of fact, NASA has found that 94% of the known universe is nothing. It is just energy. It is, if you look at it under a microscope, they're looking at it going like, well, there's nothing here. It is just, there's atoms, yes, but when you go subatomic and you go beyond the atoms, it's literally nothing. It's just like there's nothing. Collectively, as a society, we have decided what we want to see. We want to see a lamp. We want to see a water can. We want to see a cell phone. But ultimately, if you look at everything, including us, including our bodies, under a microscope, we are nothing but vibrational energy. We're just moving and vibrating at different frequencies, right? We also know, according to science, that like attracts like. This is a scientific principle. We learned about it probably in like sixth grade science. Like attracts like. So this is the concept of, the law of attraction, that like attracts like. So there are certain frequencies that attract certain experiences because those frequencies are like-minded in frequency, like they match. So if you are a musical person, for anybody who's watching or anybody who's listening, if you're a musical person and you play an instrument or you sing, you can hear when sounds don't make sense. You're like, oh, that does not go together. That does not make sense. That is yucky. Like it's a yucky sound, right? Because they're vibrations. They're vibrations that are dissonant. Those are two vibrational frequencies that do not match. So therefore, you don't put them together in a song because they're ugly, right? So the same way that we operate, when you're vibrating at a particular frequency, you are attracting things that are a match to that. Now, what you are attracting in your life, you may like or you may not like, but you are in fact responsible for those things. And this is where people don't understand. I'm responsible for my frequency. That frequency is going to attract my life's experiences, things that match. It's not always like, some people are like, but I didn't attract a flat tire. No, you didn't attract a flat tire, but were you operating at a frequency that was available for a flat tire? So that's really how that works. It's like, what is your frequency available for? What are you open to receiving? Are you open to receiving good things, or are you open to receiving bad things? Now, the concept of thoughts become things is that every thought is creative. Every thought you have is vibrational because everything is vibrational. So when you have a thought that says, oh, I'm awful. Oh, I'm ugly. Oh, there's no good men out there. Oh, I'm never going to make any money. Congratulations, you are right. Because you have a co-creative faculty that God has given you when he created you in his image. That same image includes a co-creative ability to create things. Now, God creates out of nothing. He speaks and it exists. We create out of the raw materials that he gave us. So if he gives us the world, he gives us wood, somebody makes a chair. He gives us water, somebody makes Kool-Aid. I don't like we have raw materials to work with. Yeah. So how are you using your raw materials and what are you thinking about? Because those thoughts do become things based off of the level of that frequency. And that's where the positive thinking comes in. That's where the law of attraction comes in. And I tell people the law of attraction is a secondary law. It is secondary to the law of vibration. You have to vibrate at something to attract something. So the question is, what are you vibrating at?
Guys, listen, she just gave you the number one question to ask yourself. What are you vibrating at? I want you to take some time and think about that because a lot of you out there are trying to develop a new habit of living, a more positive habit of living where you do call in abundance and faith and you don't live from a place of lack. How do you do that? How do you vibrate higher? And so that is a good question to ask, Dr. Tracy. So thanks for sharing that for sure. I think, tell me a little bit, if you had something out there, a tool for someone to get started or a download, some type of freebie or whatnot, what would be something that, my podcast listeners could go and find the work that you do?
Yeah, if you find me on Instagram and you send me a message, I will send you, it's a quick audio. I think it's like 15 minutes. And it's a list of 8 money mindset hacks to help you make millions of dollars. So that's the name of it's completely free. I send it out to anybody who wants it. Just DM me, find me on Instagram. I'm Tracy Timberlake everywhere. Find me Instagram, Facebook, and I will send you a link to that so that you can download it for yourself. And it's just 8 hacks that really help you kind of start your journey with transitioning your mind into a mind that attracts the money and not one that is focused on the lack and scarcity that you were just talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Tracy. I just have one last question or two. I typically ask this question to everyone. So the first one is, looking back from who you are now, where you are now, how have your life experiences shaped and molded, you for the current perspectives you have? And what would you tell yourself, your 20-year-old self about that today?
Such a great question. So let me start with that question first. If I was to go back to my 20-year-old self, so my 20-year-old self, I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was just like, I was living my best life in college, but I just really I had no idea. I would go back to her and I would say, you know what? It's all going to be okay. You just keep doing what you're doing because everything, like you don't have to rush to grow up. Everything that you're doing is going to lead to something really great one day.
Yeah.
Just keep going. And the second thing is believe in, and I always have, but it would be good to hear it from my future self, is believe in your dreams. Like believe in what you know to be true on the inside, because I always knew that I was meant for something bigger, for something more than I was able to see. I always knew that my life would be different than everybody that was around me. And it was uncomfortable at times to be that person because I wanted to fit in and I wanted to do what they were doing. I didn't understand why everything that everybody else was doing just seemed like not something I wanted to do. Like everybody else was like getting jobs and getting married. And I was like, but I have all these dreams that I want to accomplish before I do all of that. So trust yourself. I would tell myself to trust myself. In terms of how my life's experience led up to where I am now, it really is this series of chapters, I think, that I learned from. So I had many different jobs, many different people in my life, a lot of different mentors and coaches, even, in my 20s, who were able to steer me in the right direction. And a lot of that steering really was, Tracy, you're going to do something great. Like they didn't know either. None of them, nobody knew. They just, and sometimes I would think, no, they're just saying this to me because,
Right.
But no, I think they really believed it. And the best feelings is when those people who did pour into my life during those years when I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, now, because I still keep in touch with a lot of them, now they get to see kind of the product of what they were able to contribute to. And I'm always so grateful for those who really did take time to speak wisdom and encourage me during the times where I was just confused. But, I'll just do something until I figure it out. So now here I am.
I love that because it speaks to, that even though you don't know what your bigger is and that you're made for more, it's okay to keep going. You don't have to know it all, right? It's not the how, it's the who. And so you're becoming the who, and you just have to trust the journey, just like Dr. Tracy said. So the last question, Dr. Tracy, is, what is one thing you can do, or share with my people, my followers, my listeners, that would be empowering to them?
Being the highest and best version of yourself is an incredible gift to everybody else. And if you remember that, and you remember that by you living out your dreams, by you following through on what you're called to do, by living out your purpose and listening to God and doing what God says, everybody else in the world is better for it. And you get a chance to really be an example and a light that will reach far beyond. You won't hear all of the different stories of people being inspired by you, just by you being yourself. So be who you are intended to be, and don't be afraid when who you are called to be is different than who you were expected to be.
Love that, Dr. Tracy. Guys, you heard it from Dr. Tracy Timberlake. You can go and find her on Instagram at Tracy Timberlake. She's also on Facebook, and you heard her. DM her if you want those 8 hacks to calling in more money. Would you say how much money?
Millions. I want everybody to make
Millions.
millions because millions are available. Like, why are we stopping at anything less than that? Like, they're available. So somebody's got to make them. Might as well be you.
Might as well be me because I'm about to send the DM. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Tracy, it has been a pleasure to have you today on the habit of living. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Money mindset, habits with residuals, not just financial, but residuals for your life. So I'm going to let you all go. So go ahead and get in the habit of living, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Habit of Living podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend so we can grow our community. It would also mean the world if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to connect one-on-one, follow me on Instagram at I am Charlene Jefferson or on LinkedIn at the link in our show notes. See you in the next episode.